thinking about coming back to church? There's lots of reasons why you might be thinking that. One of the common reasons is that people would like their child or children or grandchild or grandchildren to have a similar experience as they did in church as a child. I've got a couple of thoughts about that. Hi, I'm Warren, director here at St Columba's. Glad you could join me for my message of the day. Yes, to enable your children or grandchildren to have a similar experience that you did at church as a child, that's a good reason to come back to church. For many parents or grandparents, there's some overlap here with the same reason that some parents are able and want to send their children to a private school. It's a recognition that the church and church schools still think there are some core, immutable values grounded not just in personal preference, but in God, that which transcends personal preference. It's the way we're built, and that it is important that these values are taught and developed. That's one very good reason to come back to church and bring your children with you. At church, we look to develop ourselves, inwardly, spiritually. It's a word that we often use, spiritual development, resulting in character and the development of virtues. And now the word virtue is a word that's fallen into disuse really in society, but in the church we still hang on to it. We're interested in each of us building up our virtues so we can live a virtuous life. Another benefit of bringing your children or grandchildren to church is that they'll mix with people of different ages, and they'll mix with people that in many other ways they might never really mix with. And in that mixing, they'll have a place in the congregation, and their presence will be valued by the congregation as a whole. And to come to church is to be part of something bigger than a family, although family remains a good metaphor for a church with its warmth and emphasis on relationship. Another benefit of bringing children or grandchildren to church is that they'll learn some of the foundational stories of Western culture by engaging with the Bible. You think of the parable of the Good Samaritan, and there'll be lots of people who don't actually know where that comes from and what it really means. Well, your children will learn something about that at church. But perhaps most importantly, they'll meet God, and they'll feel the invitation offered by Jesus to become a disciple in a way that appropriate to the way a child hears that call and responds. And the beautiful thing about bringing your children or grandchildren to church is that you can join them in their journey of discovery and of growth in faith. It's fun and important and beautiful to watch your children or grandchildren interact in church with the faith, God, other people, the priest, the children's worker, etc., etc. Now, one of the byproducts of accompanying your child or grandchild on this journey is that it may well do something in you as well. As your child or grandchild learns in a way appropriate for their age something about God and themselves and about faith, about morals and virtues and values, we as adults, as we accompany our children, we can grow in faith as well, to gain that perception or to grow in that perception into life that faith and the wisdom of Jesus brings. So while our children learn about God, we too can grow into Christ to become more like Jesus himself. And all that while we're enjoying our children and watching them and being part of their growth. Now, there's a few other things I could say about that, but that's probably enough. That's my third segment on reasons to come to church. I may well change tact tack next week, but might come back to this idea of some of the reasons why we want to come back to church. Thanks for joining me.